Hi everyone. If you have been following this series, then you would know by now that we have covered a lot of important concepts in DBT. Now I guess it is right time to finally build our silver layer and the gold layer, because we will tie all of the concepts that we have learned into these layers and then we will build on top of these. In this particular video, we will only be building the silver layer because it will take us around like 20 minutes to build this one, and I don't want to extend this video for like an hour or so. So we will be building the gold layer in the next video, which will be coming on the 28th of May, that is next Thursday. So for now, let's just understand how to build our silver layer. If you're new here, then I am Radhika and this is my YouTube channel Datazard. If you want to know about DBT, any particular topic, or what is DBT in general and how to get started, then this series is for you. And now without further ado, let's jump into creating our silver layer models. Till now in our silver layer, we have created two models. First one is the clean model and the other one is the quarantine model. And the only difference between them is, if we are finding that this created date is coming as null, then we are putting this in the quarantine set, otherwise we are putting this in the clean set. Why? Because I will be creating snapshots in the later videos, and for that this created at is a critical component. So I don't want this to be null, and that's why I am doing this distinction between clean and quarantine data. So I just want to write for silver layer, we currently have clean model and a quarantine model. These are the two existing ones right now. And in here we have just added lookup values, like for education and job involvement, relationship satisfaction, etc. For these we have just added lookup values. But we can add more meaningful columns on top of these existing columns. So for this, I'm going to create another silver layer and I'm going to call this an enriched silver layer model. Now in this enriched layer, at a very high level, we can do three types of things. You can do a lot more, but as an example, I'm just giving example for three different things that you can do to enrich this data set. The first is you can add flags of different types on your data. Then you can group employees into different buckets depending on different columns, and you can add some derived columns. Now for flags, in our use case, I'm going to add two flags here. First flag will be for attrition, whether the employee is attrited or not. The other flag would be for overtime, whether the employee has worked overtime or not. So these are the two flag columns I'm going to add on top of this clean silver model. Then for buckets, I'm going to again group employees into buckets as per age and as per the tenure in the company. How long have they been into the company for? So I'm going to group employees into these two buckets. And then I'm going to add three different derived columns. The first is on the basis of prior experience. So I'm going to add three different, the first is I'm going to find out the prior work experience years. So how many years of prior experience this employee has. The next is we are going to understand the career stagnation years. So we'll be deriving this, and also we're going to say how many years has it been since a role change. So years since role change, how many years employee has been in the same role. These are going to help us in getting the dashboards which the payroll team and the HR team they need. So this is all what we are doing in the silver layer, because we are not adding any business logic here. We are just enriching our data set with more columns which will add meaning to our data. So now let's go to our DBT project, and in here in the silver layer, I'm first going to create a file and I'm going to call this silver underscore employee underscore enriched, because I'm enriching the employee data set. I'm going to start with writing CTE. So I'm going to say with base as. We have to get the columns from the silver clean model. So I'm going to use the ref keyword. So I'm adding curly braces and then ref. And then we have to add silver HR data clean with lookup values. And as best practices, we should be writing the column names. So I'm writing the column names over here, and let's just format this. So now here I'm getting all the columns from the Silver Clean HR data. Now we need to add those flags, buckets and derived columns. So I'm going to do select, and again I'm going to write these column names because we still need these. We are only trying to enrich this with more meaningful columns. So now I'm going to first start with our flags. So for the first flag, this one is for the attrition. So I'm going to say case when attrition is equal to 1, then 1, else 0. It does not hold much meaning, but I want to show you that you can add these flags so that you remember it when you're creating your own models. So as flag attrited, and I'm going to cast this as int. So cast, and we will be writing as int over here. And then similarly for overtime as well, let's just copy this, and I'm going to say case when overtime is equal to 1, then 1 else 0, cast this as int, and this is flag overtime. Then I'm going to create those buckets. So the first bucket that I'm creating is for age. So I'm going to say case when age is less than equal to 25, then the bucket that I'm calling this is 18 to 25 because our minimum years of age is 18. Then I'm going to say when age is between 26 and we should say less than 25. So this is 18 to 24. Then when it is between 25 and 34, then we are going to say 25 to 34 years. Then when age is between 35 and 44, then the age is 35 to 44 bucket. Else I'm going to say 45 plus years. So these are the age buckets that I have formed, and I'm just going to say end as bucket age groups. Then the next is we want to form tenure buckets. So that will be coming from years at company. So we'll say case when years at company is less than 2, then 0 to 1 year. Then we're going to say when years at company is between 2 and 5, then 2 to 5 years. When years at company is between 6 and 10, then 6 to 10 years. Else I'm going to say 10 plus years. And I'm going to say end as bucket tenure groups. And lastly, we need to add 3 derived columns. So the first derived column is derived prior experience years. I'm going to subtract total working years minus years at company as derived prior years experience, prior experience years. And I'm going to cast this as int. So cast as int, and then this is our column name. Similarly, I will have derived careers stagnation years. So that is years at company minus years since last promotion. And again, I'm going to cast this as int. So I'll write cast, and this is derived career stagnation years, and then cast years at company minus years in the current role as int. We are again casting this as int, and I'm going to call this derived years since role change. So these are all the columns that I want to create, and I'm going to save from base because we are getting this from the clean data. And now let's just save this. So now this completes our enriched model. We should be adding this into our YAML file as well, so that we have proper documentation and we can add tests and everything on top of this model as well. So I'm coming into the silver models.yaml file, and in here I'm going to add name. So the name of our model is silver underscore employee underscore enriched. Now we can write description for this. So description that I'm writing for this is, in this multiple new columns are added to the table. Some of these are flags, some of these are buckets to the group data together, and others are to normalize the columns. Now the next thing that we need to add is columns. So the first column that I'm adding is flag attrited. So flag underscore attrited. Then we can give column description. So I'm saying this column is flagged to show whether the employee is still working in the business or not. And then we can write data tests on top of this. So I'm writing data tests. So the first test that I'm adding is not null. And in here we can add the description. This is to ensure that for every employee, we have the indication of whether they are working in the business or not. And we can change the config as well. So I want config severity to be just warning and not an error if it is null. Then we can add accepted values test. So accepted values, then we can write the description. The accepted values are 0 and 1. Then we can write arguments. So the values are 0 and 1. So this is how we are going to write the test for this particular column. And we can change the config as well. So I want the config severity to be error. So if the values don't fall in this range, then I want to throw an error. Similarly, I'm going to do this for the other columns as well. I have already explained in detail about how to write this particular YAML file in the previous videos. If you have not watched the models video where I have explained this, then please do watch that and come back here, and this will make more sense to you. I won't be able to spend much time over here because all of these things are covered in depth in that particular video, but I will put this in the GitHub repository so that you can pick it up from there and add this to your project as well. I have added all the description. I'll just go through these quickly. So we have flag overtime as another column, and this column is to show whether the employee is working overtime or not. This is the description that I've added. There are two data tests again on this. First is a not null test. We don't want this column to be null, that's why we are doing this, and we have set the severity to be 1. Then for accepted values, again it will accept only 0 and 1 because we are using this as a flag, and if the values are not between 0 and 1, then we want the severity to be error. The next column is the bucket age group. Now this column is to group the employees into age buckets. This is the description. Then again we are doing two data tests similar to the previous ones. First is a not null test because we don't want this column to be null, and the severity for this test is 1. And then the accepted values, we want the accepted values to be in this range. This is exactly what we have defined over here. So these are the same values that we are writing in the accepted values, and if the values are not between this, then we want to generate an error or throw an error. The next one is the bucket tenure group. So this column is to group employees into tenure buckets. Again, there are two data tests. First is a not null test, and the severity is warning. And the other one is the accepted values test, and we are giving these as the accepted values. So this should be 0 to 1 years, then 2 to 5 years, 6 to 10 years, because that's what we have written over there, and 10 plus years. So these values should match what you have mentioned over here. So double check that they are exactly the way that you have written over here. And otherwise this should throw an error. The next column is the derived column. So derived prior experience years. This column tells about the number of years the employee has worked before joining this company. It is the difference between total working years and the years at company. So we have written this as description. Then for data tests, not null, we don't want this to be null, and the config is 1, like the severity is 1 for this if it comes out to be null. The next test is test less than value. This test is to ensure that the value is never negative, as the number of years of experience can never be negative for any person. So we have to pass arguments. This is our own test that we have written. So the arguments that we are passing is value. We want any rows that have value less than 0 to be flagged. That's why we have written value as 0, and the config severity is error. Similarly, for derived career stagnation years, this column tells how many years has it been since the last promotion. It is the difference between years at company and years since last promotion. So again, we are doing two data tests over here. First is a not null test, because we don't want these columns to be null, and severity is 1. Then the next is test less than val. Again, we don't want this to be a negative number. So if it is a negative number, we want that to be flagged. That's why we are saying value as 0. So any row which is less than 0 will come up in our test results, and the test would be failed. And the severity for this particular test is error. And lastly, we have derived years since role change column. This column shows how long it has been since the employee has changed the roles. And again, we are doing two tests here, not null and test less than val, similar to the ones that we have done previously. So now this completes our silver layer. We have defined the model, we have defined the properties or metadata related to the model, and have added tests as well. So we should be able to run these now. So let's go to our terminal, click on new terminal. I'm going to go into our environment. So conda activate dbt_env_d. This is my environment. Then we have to go into our dbt folder to run the dbt commands. And now here I'm going to do dbt run, select. I'm just running our enriched model. So I'm doing silver employee enriched. And now let us see if there are any errors. So we have a passing error, test definition dictionary must have exactly one key. There is some problem in our YAML. Okay, so the problem is over here, and that's because I have not indented these properly. So let me update the indentation, and now let us just clear and run this again. So we have got an error, and the error is at position invalid identifier over_18. Okay, we removed that over 18 column, that's why it's coming like that. So let me just remove it from here and remove it from the other ones, because we are not getting these in the silver clean model because it is a redundant column. We can get this information from the age, that's why I removed it earlier. So let me just clear this and run this again. Hopefully this time there are no errors. Yep, it passed successfully. So I will be adding all of this in the GitHub repository so that you can pick it up from there. And like I mentioned in the start of the video, that we will be creating the gold layer in the next video. So stay tuned, it's coming next Thursday. If you have any questions related to the silver layer, then please put your questions in the comments below. I would love to get back to you. Thank you for watching. I will see you in my next one.